Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. Early on this week somebody asked me if I could give a talk this evening on the subject of the last 4 objects of contemplation in the Anapanasati Sutta. What to do after one has emerged from a nice state of samadhi, a deep state of calm, and how one can use these last 4 reflections as taught by the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta in order to weaken the defilements, in order to undermine the illusion caused by those defilements, in order to see the Dhamma, in order to release the mind, in order to gain the paths and the fruits. And it's my experience that whatever the Buddha said in the suttas always has a very profound and deep meaning. And because it's profound and deep, it has a very powerful effect on the mind. And it has a much greater result than you can anticipate. So when the Buddha advised in the Anapanasati Sutta to contemplate these 4 things, these are obviously very powerful reflections. I'm sure most of you would know what those 4 reflections are. In case that you forget them, they are Anicca, Viraga, Nirodha and Patinissagga. And many of you, all of you, would know the meaning of Anicca, or you think you know the meaning of Anicca, and you might think you know the meaning of Viraga, Nirodha and Patinissagga. But if you really knew the meaning of those things, then you would be able to uproot the defilements, to see non-self, and to give up the clinging to the wheel of samsara. All these words are just signifying something which we call their meaning. And it's only when we fully understand what they're signifying, what they're pointing to, and we completely understand the meaning, only then can we say that we know those things. And the sign that you understand the meaning of those words is that it releases the mind. And one will always experience with the insights into such powerful words, powerful concepts. One will always experience enormous peace, bliss, and a sense that something has been destroyed, if one can understand these things. So this is much further than a mere intellectual grasp of these concepts. This is an experience of these concepts. It's actually being anicca, sort of feeling it completely, thoroughly. It's like being viraga. It's being nirodha. It's being patinissagga, in the sense of not identifying as self with this, but sort of understanding it so completely, fully, as if one is standing in the middle of this, the very center of these words, and seeing it in all directions, exactly what it means, from the inside out. And this is what we mean by the power of the mind to create insight. First of all, it's very significant that the Buddha places reflections after those 12 steps of the Anapanasati Sutta, which was deliberately said, deliberately arranged to create those things which we call jhanas. And just as we're passing through these 12 states, I bring everyone's attention to the states of breathing in, breathing out, developing sukha, experiencing sukha, and experiencing piti. Because those of you whose meditation is yet to really take off, you do well to really reflect upon those instructions of the Lord Buddha when doing the meditation on the breath. Now when you are watching the breath, when you have got the breath in mind, don't just watch any old, ordinary, boring breath, but to even make a resolution, a gentle suggestion to the mind. May I breathe in, just experiencing piti sukha. May I breathe out, experiencing piti sukha, the bliss, the happiness of contentment. And this is developing the perception of the beautiful breath, in my terminology. And once you can start to develop that perception of the beautiful breath, then your meditation has some power. You're getting into the nitty-gritty of the meditation on the breath. You find you don't have to force the mind. The mind wants to play around with this. It wants to sit more and more. It wants to have seclusion more and more. It starts to move away from the worldly interactions between people, books, food and sleep. It wants to have more and more time with this beautiful breath, satisfying, calling the mind ever deeper to ever more profound states of stillness and bliss. And with each one of these stages of the first 12 stages, the Anapanasati Sutta, each one of these stages is like calming the mind and feeling that piti sukha ever deeper, ever more calm. And then the last, I think it's the 15th, samadahang chittang, like bringing the mind to a sense of stillness. And then vimochayang, freeing that mind of the 12th step, the 11th and the 12th step. Freeing the mind. Freeing the mind means bringing it into the jhana realms. Freeing it from the world of the 5 senses. Freeing it from the last vestiges of the hindrances. Freeing it from the body. Freeing it from the senses. That's what we mean by freeing the mind. And that's jhanas. Once those jhanas have been achieved, once the mind is powerful, it's deep, it's profound, once it has the ability to really contemplate fully, then it should take up one of these 4 reflections. Take it up in the sense of just suggesting to the mind, anicca. And the mind has already been well enough conditioned through hearing the Dhamma, through reading the Dhamma, and through some of the insights which you already have attained. It should have enough of a clue to get on the scent of anicca, like a dog finds the scent of some buried treasure or some illicit drugs and can follow that to its source and find out really what this anicca is truly about. Once the mind is powerful like that, it can follow the scent. It's called yonisamanasikara, the work of the mind which goes back to the source, just like a bloodhound finding the source of that scent, following it unerringly to its place of origin. And this is what one does with something like the contemplation of anicca. Don't just use one's thinking mind and all of the ideas one has had about anicca in the past, rise and fall, coming and going, because many of those thoughts have not been capable of releasing the mind from the asawas, from the kilesas, from the defilements, from the fetters. It's been a superficial investigation of that thing. If you suggest to the mind just anicca, it's amazing, just even though that these will be areas in which you've never trod before, places where the mind has never gone, because of the power of the mind, you will be able to penetrate those areas of the Dhamma wherein the treasure of enlightenment lies. You'll be able to go deeper. Not just your old ideas, but something very new and very profound. Anicca, the impermanence, the instability, the irregularity, the lack of continuity. All of these things, these words are pointing to one thing, one aspect of experience, of life, of being, which can see it as just something which is completely insubstantial. To see it just like the simile of Vedana, just a drop of water on a puddle, a plop experience. Even with a fast camera you can hardly catch that moment. It rises and passes away so fast. And all you can say, as the Buddha explained, is something there because a rising is seen. But there's nothing substantial because a passing away is seen almost immediately afterwards. And this is what we take to be life, what we take to be the world, what we take to be me, what we take to be mine. Something just so insubstantial you can hardly catch hold of it at all. It's passing so fast. And you allow the mind, which has been empowered by the deep states of samadhi, to play around in that area, to be drawn ever and ever deeper into the full meaning of that word. And like many searches into deep insight, one will always have to come across those two barriers of fear and excitement in order to get to the very heart of these things. The barrier of fear and excitement is not just a barrier to jhanas, but it's a barrier to deep insight as well. We fear insight because it's destroying something which is so close to us, which we've got so used to, which we feel literally naked without. In the same way you'd be afraid of taking your clothes off in this sala with all these people around. You feel embarrassed. You feel unnatural. You feel insecure. In the same way, when you take away these clothes, which is your ego, your sense of self, when you undress all these views and take them away and see what's truly there, it can be very fearsome. It takes a great deal of courage, and it's only the courage which can be generated from deep states of samadhi. Those monks, hermits, sages of the past who have dwelt in the caves, in the mountains, in the forests, have always been known for their courage. Not just their courage to live in such harsh conditions, not just their courage in dealing with the pains of the body or the lack of food or the lack of sleep, but their courage in facing the obstacles to deep insight. They're willing to die for the truth. And when I say willing to die, not just the sense of the body dying for the truth, but all their ideas and views, their ego, their pride, everything they ever known or hoped to know has to be abandoned, given up, the courage to let go. And it's only usually when the mind has that power of deep meditation that one can really be a courageous one. And one can overcome that fear. One is like empowered, strong, like this great warrior who just goes into the army of thousands and just scatters them just by the confidence and courage of the empowerment of samadhi. But also the excitement which can come up so easily as well. The excitement of seeing something deep and profound. Wow, at last. That sort of idea, that sort of concept, that movement of the mind obstructs the attainment of deep samadhi, and it stops the attainment of deep insight as well. That's why the calm which is developed by deep samadhi, the sense of inactivity, the stability of the mind, which does not react, but which just sits there and watches no matter what happens. A sort of mind which can just sit there and just watch. If Mara just comes and says, boo, or if a beautiful lady just comes and strips naked in front of you, a mind which can just be absolutely unmoved no matter what happens, that's a degree of samadhi you need to overcome the fear, to overcome the excitement, so you can really see truth for what it is. Once you can abandon those obstacles to insight, you find the mind will want to play and find that truth. Because the truth of something like anicca, releases the mind from its prison of the samsara. It shatters the fetters. It gives the bliss of freedom. And it's that joy, that happiness, that bliss born of the freeing of the mind from what one intuitively, instinctively knows is a great burden of suffering, a great cause of torture to the mind and the body. One knows that instinctively, and the mind delights in getting close to finding the key which unlocks all your chains and frees the mind, and frees the mind from samsara once and for all. There is something delightful about that insight. And once one can get past those barriers, that delight will just draw the mind ever inwards and inwards, to play so much with the meaning of anicca, to get to know it so intimately, to get to its very heart, to its very core, so you know what the Buddha meant by anicca. And so you know what Venerable Kondanya meant in the Dhammacakka Sutta, which we just chanted. Yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabantang Nirodha dhammanti. All, everything, the complete works, which is arising, all the arising things are the nature not just to cease, but to stop once and for all, to end completely in Nirodha. You start to see that all of this which we can know, the Dhammas, they are of the very nature to cease completely with no remainder. Nibbana becomes clear, Nibbana becomes possible, Nibbana becomes obvious. Nibbana being the ceasing of all things, the flame going out, the fire completely quenched until there's no trace of that fire, and all imprint of that fire is completely gone. When one can actually see through the ceasing of things, just like Kondanya saw, one sees that whether it's the body, the Vedana, the perceptions, mental formations and consciousness, all the 6 types of consciousness, whether it's sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, or the mental faculty, all of these things can actually see are all of the nature to cease completely without any remainder. You can see all of these things which we take to be real, which we take to be hard and solid, you can see them are of the complete nature to disappear without any remainder. You see anicca to that degree, not just the rise and fall, and the fall giving the energy for another rise, but rise and fall with fall, no energy left, nothing remaining, nothing to give rise to new experiences, to new phenomena. A fall which is truly a fall, which doesn't rise up again. So many people in the world think of anicca just like a ping pong, like a yo-yo, just going up and down, never seeing the full meaning of anicca with Nirodha, with the cessation. And because they don't understand cessation, because they can't see the real emptiness, the real sunya of the sensory world, the five khandhas, of everything and all. They can't see the emptiness of everything and all. They still think that somewhere there's something real, somewhere there's something solid, somewhere that I am, or the real me, or the cosmic me, or the cosmic all, or whatever they try and posit a self in, without seeing the ending of everything. The anicca being the insubstantiality, irregularity. Something which was is no longer there. As if this whole hall just suddenly vanished with nothing remaining. Not even a shadow of the hall remaining. Just complete emptiness. Not even an air, not even a vacuum. But nothing left. Nothing you can measure, nothing you can rationalize. Just nothing. Emptiness, gone. Only when one can see anicca to that degree has one got a hope of understanding what the Buddha meant by the Four Noble Truths, what the Buddha meant by anatta. These are all aspects of the one thing, and so if one just put those ideas in the mind, suggestions, guides, maps, then the mind might follow. The mind might go deep. The mind might go so deep that it goes to the heart of anicca and sees anicca, knows anicca, realizes it. And when you come out afterwards, then you'll be able to say, Yang Kinchi Samudaya Dhamma. Body, all the Vedanas of pleasure and pain, beauty and ugliness, all the nice words you hear and the rotten words you hear, all the inspiring thoughts and the stupid thoughts, all the beautiful food and the disgusting food, sweet smells and disgusting smells, all the happiness and sorrow in your mind. All of that, Yang Kinchi Samudaya Dhamma. All of your plans, your memories, your consciousness as well, through all the six senses, all that nature to arise. You see that as an arising thing. You know that all of that can, and eventually must, will, just completely cease with no remainder. Completely gone. Everything you ever thought, having no remainder. All your moments of consciousness, one day, no other consciousness arising, ceased forever. All the bodies you've ever worn through samsara, ceased without remainder. All of your happiness and pain, your agony and ecstasies, all of that ceased without remainder. No more. Done with, finished. To see that gives you the insight of Anya Kondanya. If you can't do that with anicca, you can try with viraga. Sometimes people talk about viraga as being dispassion, but it's one possible meaning for that word, but the meaning which I always prefer is a fading away. It's almost like a precursor to Nirodha, something which happens before cessation is experienced or touched. The fading away of things. With viraga, after you've got a nice jhana, you can mention that word to yourself, viraga, fading away. The whole idea of fading away is relinquishment. But it's not you relinquishing things. It's not you throwing this away and throwing that away. It's the outside and the inside as well, fading away. It's you doing the disappearing act. You becoming the invisible man. So invisible that you just completely disappear and nothing is left. The fading away of all phenomena. The fading away of body. The fading away of the world outside. The fading away of Vedana. The beautiful fading away of this Vedana of pleasure and pain, beauty and ugliness, happiness and sadness, which occupies our mind even more than thoughts. The great problem of existence, pleasure and pain. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have an end to that problem, to have all the business finished once and for all, have all your work completed and done? How can you ever rest when you have pleasure and pain? How can there ever be comfort, contentment, stillness, peace, when Vedana is still active? It's impossible. People in the world, they try and generate Vedana, intense Vedana, thinking that that is a way to experience happiness and fulfillment in this world. Sometimes people even go to movies which have frightened the hell out of you. Or they go to very sad movies where they cry their eyes out afterwards. It's amazing just how people just scare themselves silly. They just want more intense pain, more intense pleasure. But that's the way of the world. The way of the Buddha, the way of the Samana, is to calm all of this, to watch it fade away, to watch the Vedanas of the world, the intensity of feelings in the world disappear and get less and less the longer you stay in monastic life. To see that you don't shake and quiver with Vedanas as you did as a layperson. To see as whatever the world gives you, with its vagaries, with its uncertainties, just the mind doesn't shake. What before would make a very unpleasant Vedana, just the mind doesn't shake. What before would be just incredibly pleasant and exciting, just the mind is cool. The Vedana is beginning to fade away. And with that fading away of Vedana, with the softening, with the gentling of Vedana, you get this beautiful peace. The peace which it by itself is a type of happiness which people in the world can rarely even understand, let alone sort of experience. The happiness of peace. People in the world think that if all Vedana starts to disappear, then what is there happiness? How can there be bliss when you're not doing anything? You're just sitting there, quiet, still. Whereas I said, sitting here, and as some of you have experienced for yourself, the most bliss you can ever experience in this realm is in deep meditation. If you really want happiness, the happiness of the mind exceeds all other pleasures. Not only exceeds it in its amplitude of happiness and its degree of pleasure, of raw bliss, but also in its depth and profundity. This is not a shallow, superficial thing. This is something which is a rich happiness. And you sense that when you experience it. It's a happiness which is going to the core, not just covering you in some fine raiment, but you understand inside is nothing really solid. There's something real and meaningful here. As you go into that deep happiness and the deep stillness, then you understand that through the calming of Vedana, you get all the contentment, all the satisfaction you could have ever wanted. And the fading away, there is a treasure. Fading away, getting closer to emptiness, getting closer to Nirodha, cessation, getting closer to Nibbana, where everything is gone. When one understands Viraga in that particular way, that Viraga will actually lead you, not just into insight, but lead you into calm, lead you into whatever you ever wanted. But also lead you into yourself fading away. The knower, the doer, disappearing, fading, fading, fading. And as you play around with that concept, you begin to understand not just the end of the path, not just Nibbana, but you understand why the path. What are we doing this Eightfold Path for anyway? You understand this is all about Viraga, fading away. When you start by just practicing precepts and call what? There's so much harshness of your character is fading away. That's why that people who've been monks or nuns many years become very soft, gentle, friendly beings. Lay people just love to be around. It's as if all of their harshness, unpleasantness, is fading. That's just the result of precepts, of keeping rules, keeping sila. Certain aspects of you fade, and it's wonderful to see the fading away of what is really quite unwholesome. Your ill will, bad speech, and bad actions. When that fades away, you can understand what this path is about. Once those things fade away, you can start to see how, through sense restraint, as other things are fading away. All those excitements and titillations which once would occupy your whole day, they're fading away. You're allowing all your old memories to fade away. All of the past, with all of its difficulties, but also with its pleasures, allowing all to fade away, to become a person with no history, no past. Someone who can let go of time. And all your worries and concerns and plans about the future, that too, fading away. In the lay world, people spend almost all of their life in the past or the future. And when that fades away, you're left with a beautiful present moment. Just now. Once these things start to fade away, you can understand how you have to allow the thinking to fade. Not just to cut it and stop it, not to try and destroy it, because that's just coming through power, through self, through ego, through me. But allowing it to fade. The word Viraga is just beautiful in its meaning. By taking away your interest, by taking away your sense of value in those things, they do fade, they disappear. You're patient enough to give them time. It fades. And you find yourself meditating on the breath, and everything else has faded away. Your past, your future has faded away, all those stupid thoughts have faded away. The body is about to fade away, all you can experience is the breath. All of your business and letter writing has faded away, all of your lust has faded away. All you have is just one breath you're watching. So much has faded, disappeared. And now you're watching the breath fade away. The breath gets softer and softer, more and more beautiful, more and more profound. Fading, fading, fading. With it, the doer. This very active, this very problematical, control freak doer. Fading, fading, fading. It's hardly doing anything at all when you get to the beautiful breath. Nothing much is happening. Even your controller is fading. Even consciousness is fading. Instead of consciousness being spread all over the place, so much of those consciousnesses have faded away. Sight consciousness, sound consciousness, all faded, disappeared. Smell, taste conscious, faded away into nothing, ended, ceased. You've just got this very refined sense of touch, just on the breath, just in this moment, a very subtle breath, nothing else in the body to be felt. It's all fading. Straight away you'll understand why that gives you so much happiness and pleasure. Its dukkha is fading. Dukkha is disappearing. At last, you're getting to understand the path. what you've been hoping for, ordained for, searching for, studying for, what you've been born for, is happening. The fading away of suffering. And you're experiencing it. You're not just thinking about it, you're not writing a book about it, you're right there when it's happening. And it's beautiful and wonderful and inspiring to see the Dhamma start to manifest. As suffering starts to fade away, process just takes over. Because this is what the mind has been born for. Why its whole purpose is happening at last. And just you start to allow everything to fade away. The breath fades and you're just left with a nimitta. The nimitta was there all along, just covered by the breath. When the breath fades, it reveals the nimitta. The simile of the Buddha, like the clouds obscure the full moon. When the clouds part, the moon manifests. The moon was there all the time. It just covered. The moon here is the reflection of your mind. It's always there, but we're just attending too much to these other things. When the breath fades away, there is the mind, the reflection, the nimitta. You allow the last bit of the dukkha to fade away. Things disappear. You enter a jhana. If you ever have much experience of jhanas and you reflect upon them, they're all stages of fading away. That's why a lot of people can't do that, because they're holding on, too much attachment, too much clinging. They just won't let these things fade. They try and either make them fade, or they just try and keep them out of fear, out of stubbornness. So once these things start to fade, that fading away of the dukkha is complete in the second jhana. The fading away of consciousness now starts to happen. As more and more things are let go of, the mind gets more and more refined in these different stages of jhana, until everything fades away completely in the experience of Nirodha. And afterwards, you just see in the whole process, just the giving up, a fading, a letting go, an abandoning, a relinquishing, all these beautiful words of Buddhism, you actually see as an experience. You've walked on that path, and these have just been the signposts. This has just been the sights along the journey. This is what it looks like on that journey. This is the territory. And as these things all fade away, you understand what Viraga truly means. Viraga is the path. By letting go, by relinquishing, all these things happen by themselves. And especially you understand Nirodha, the ending, the cessation of things. A very hard word to understand, because we only know things. It's hard to perceive when something's not there. And especially we're unlikely to really allow the possibility of that which we are truly attached to, that which we truly cling to. We're unlikely to allow that to cease. With our understanding of Nirodha, it's always partial. Those things which we don't like, which we don't want, those can have the title Nirodha. We can allow those to cease. There's some parts of us which we just do not want to give up, which we do not want to cease, which we do not want to disappear. And this is where the attachment and clinging stop us experiencing the fruits of cessation and stop us even understanding its meaning as an experience. This is one of the insights which are most likely after a jhana experience, is the insight into the meaning of Nirodha. Because this is the first time first solid experience of something absolutely vanishing, completely ceasing. 5 senses once were and are no longer for a long period of time. In the simile I've given before of television sets, it's not just a program changing. It's a whole television set which has been there all the time, as long as you can remember. Just all you see was the programs, what's on the screen changing. And for the first time in your memory, the whole television set completely vanishes. And it's completely gone. It's Nirodha. The very possibility of that was completely beyond you. You couldn't even conceive of that happening. But after a jhana, you know it has happened. You've been there, you've experienced it. That which was impossible is. Once you experience the profoundness of cessation, you've seen 5 senses going, or you've seen the doer going in the second jhana, completely, absolutely frozen, no Chetana possible, no control at all, just absolutely still, with a stillness which is, again, you cannot conceive of, you cannot even imagine it. This is why those jhana states are weird, and why people who try and explain them who haven't had any experience, and they just always fall flat on their face. They haven't got a clue what those things are. Once those are experienced for what they truly are, then you can actually see that something very big has gone, especially the doer going. That has been most of what you thought you were. That's what we call the house builder in Buddhism. That's one of the biggest causes, if not the cause, of rebirth, what keeps samsara going. Always building new houses, new tasks, new things to do. That which keeps samsara going, which makes the wheel go round, doing. See that completely, absolutely gone. You're just sitting there, absolutely still, frozen, no doer. Because there's no doer, that's why there's no movement. I really mean no movement. Just one mind object for a long period of time without even a wobble or a shake. Like still life. Once that is experienced and emerges afterwards, you've seen something which you thought was an absolute disappearing and going to cessation. That which you thought was an absolute, you realize, is impermanent, can fade, can actually end and cease. Once you can admit the possibility of such cessation, then you can understand anatta. There is nothing substantial here, because you know it can cease completely, absolutely, with no even cosmic consciousness, no part of it, no unmanifest consciousness, nothing remaining whatsoever in any which way. Cessation is cessation is cessation. If there was something left, it wouldn't be called cessation. Once you can see that from your experience, it gives you the fuel for the experience of stream winning. It gives you the seed. Cessation has happened, and you can start to understand from that that which you took to be yourself, that which you took to be me, that which you took to be mind, is subject to cessation, is Nirodha Dhamma. You know what cessation means. You know it applies to all the 5 senses. You know it applies to will. It's only a small step to know that it applies to consciousness as well. That which you thought was you, the one who knows, ceases. goes completely, without any remainder. And see that degree of Nirodha, then you have the opportunity for the enlightenment experiences. And again you see the path of inclining towards cessation, not inclining towards building up more things, not inclining towards more possessions, not inclining towards having more things or having more thoughts or having even more attainments. Allowing everything to cease, giving up, relinquishing, letting go, throwing away, seeing how little one can live with, see how little thoughts one can keep in one's mind, seeing how little one can sleep, how little one can eat, how little one can talk, how little one can think. How much can one give up? After a while, one inclines to giving up the whole lot. Nirodha happens. And you see that Nirodha is the highest of the happinesses. It's worthwhile. It's well worth doing. And then you can maybe have some idea of the fourth contemplation, Patinissagga. Patinissagga is the same word. For those of you who know a little bit of Pali, then I encourage the study of Pali here, because it does uncover some things which do not come out in translations. When you understand Pali, you can recognize some of these words. The word Patinissagga you might recognize from the Vinaya. You might recognize from the 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th Sangati Sesas. Patinissagga is the noun. The verb form, in its conditional sense, is Patinissagga. It's used for a person who abandons their wrong course of action. Abandon the 10th Sagga, who gives up their course for a schism. In the 11th, who gives up support for a schism. In the 12th, who gives up their refusal to be admonished. And the 13th, who gives up their criticism of the act of banishment. They use the same word of Patinissagga. It's giving up a view. Giving up a sort of a way of using the mind. Giving up a thought. Giving up a perception. It's abandoning on that level. Not so much as giving up material things, not such as like giving up your robe or giving up your sugar or giving up your worldly possessions, your money or your car or something. This is like giving up on the very deepest levels of cognition. We can give away many things in this life. But what we find hard to give up is those things which we call our mental possessions, our pride, our sense of self, our knowledge, our sense of being someone who no one else can tread on. All those senses of I, that's what we find hard to abandon. And this has to be abandoned if one wishes to get enlightened. All the sense of self with all its ramifications, all the stupidity and pain which that causes. Pride, sense of self, sense of me, sense of mine, just creates more fire which burns you in your inside. It's called dukkha. Please don't buy into all of that. Allow it to fade, allow it to cease. And see if you can give up all the aspects of self-view. So when you do the reflection on Patinissagga, it's not the worldly, material things you're giving up, it's the things of the mind. You're abandoning, giving away, letting go. Give away your past and future. In the same way in the Sangati Sesa rules, A monk is asked in front of the Sangha 3 times, give that up, give that up, give that up. If you don't give that up, you incur the offence of Sanghati Sesa. The Buddha is asking you, giving up your sense of past and future. If you don't, you get the offence of suffering. Give up your thinking and all your thoughts. Otherwise you get the offence of headaches. Give up all of your sense of control, of mine, my ideas, my rights, my will, my mind, my plans, my ideas. See if you can apply Patinissagga to those. Have the courage and see what happens. You become peaceful. These are the stuff of fetters, the stuff of defilements, the stuff of craving. Can't you see that? Through contemplating Patinissagga, you're abandoning not just the outside world, you're abandoning the inside world. And if you develop that Patinissagga perception throughout the practice of meditation, you'll find the meditation gets so easy. You're abandoning. In the Indriya Sagyutta, there's a word which is very close to Patinissagga, Viraga. The Viraga, if you develop that mind of abandoning, of Viraga, so you very easily attain the Jhanas. You attain Samadhi. Easily. The Patinissagga perception of abandoning the inner thoughts, the inner ideas, the inner illusions is a beautiful fast track into the deep meditations. See how much you can give up, especially your ideas, your thoughts, and even some of the ways you perceive. If you can do that, you are applying the contemplation of Patinissagga to developing deep meditation. After deep meditation, if you contemplate Patinissagga even further, you're abandoning all of those mental defilements, those mental cravings, those mental wrong views, mental wrong perceptions, mental wrong thoughts, called the vipalasas, the perversions of cognition, what we call avijja, delusion. You're abandoning your delusion. You're giving it up. You're allowing it to cease until there's nothing there. If one can do that, one can get on the path to the deep insights. And you find that you can give up everything because there's nothing there anyway. There's nothing to keep. There's nothing worth holding on to. As the Lord Buddha said, what's the word? Sabbang nalang abhinivesanaya. Abhinivesanaya is a beautiful word. Again, for those who know Pali, there's a related word, nivesana, means a lodging, an abiding. I like to translate that sabbang nalang abhinivesanaya, that all, everything completely is not worth hanging out in, not worth making abiding in, not worth making a home for the consciousness or for the doer. It's usually translated as nothing is worth attaching to. It misses most of the meaning. When you understand the idea of nivesana, it means a place where you abide, where you live, where you create a home, where you create an abiding. Understanding that, you understand the full meaning of that. And you understand why you can actually abandon everything. Why Patinissagga? The abandoning of wrong views, wrong courses of thinking, wrong courses of using the mind. But this is a path to both jhanas and to nibbana. So these are ways of using those 4 reflections at the end of the Anapanasati Sutta. Anicca, Viraga, Nirodha, Patinissagga. When the Buddha taught those, he meant them to be done extremely deeply, very beautifully, very powerfully, very wonderfully. Unless you are an arahant, never think that you understand these words completely. That's why it's good just to allow them to roll around in the mind. Allow the mind to play around with them. Allow the mind to recognize them. There may have been experiences in the past, in the long distant past, when you knew those words. They can resonate now and take you to the same territory. The territory of jhanas, the territory of Maggaphala, the territory of release. So play with those words, especially after deep meditation. They can lead you into jhanas, they can lead you into complete release. So that's a little talk this evening, because somebody asked me to, on the 4 reflections at the end of the Anapanasati Sutta, on Anicca, Viraga, Nirodha, Patinissagga. Has anyone got any comments or questions? Okay.
Bhagavad